Story 1. Dispatch 913. I've been a police officer in the small town of River's Edge, Montana for 12 years. Nothing much happens here. DUIs, domestic calls, maybe the occasional meth bust. You get to know everyone, which is both comforting and unnerving. When something strange happens, it sticks out like a gunshot in church. The weirdest night of my life started on September 13th, 2 years ago. I was on the night shift with my partner, Officer Julia Hart, and we were halfway through our usual patrol. Empty roads, the radio spitting static, the smell of burnt coffee in the cruiser. At exactly 2:14 a.m., dispatch crackled through our speaker. Unit 12, possible disturbance. Abandoned farmhouse on County Road 6. Caller reports screaming. Caller ID unknown. That was already strange. There were no occupied houses on County 6. The old Marin farm had been abandoned for nearly 30 years after a double homicide. Father killed the family and hung himself in the barn. Kids still dared each other to go out there. Julia frowned at me. Probably some teenagers again. Yeah, I said, but we better check it out. As we pulled onto County 6, the radio began cutting out, just faint pops of static and fragments of voices. Dispatch was unreadable. Unit 12, do not, repeat, do not, and then nothing. The Marin property sat half a mile off the road. The drive was nothing but weeds and gravel. The headlights cut through a rolling fog that had settled in thick as soup. Jesus, Julia muttered, you can barely see 10 feet. We parked near the barn and stepped out, flashlights cutting cones into the mist. The air smelled like old wood and wet earth. The house loomed ahead, 2 stories, windows like black eyes. The paint had peeled to gray bone. I felt something heavy in my chest, a strange pressure like the air itself was holding its breath. We called out, River's Edge PD, anybody here? No response. Inside, the house creaked with the sound of slow decay. Wallpaper hung like torn skin, and every step stirred dust older than I was. That's when we heard it. A woman's voice, faint and muffled, somewhere upstairs. Help me. Please. Julia froze. You heard that? Yeah, I said, drawing my weapon. Go left. I'll cover the stairs. We moved like we'd practiced 100 times, but the fear this time wasn't normal adrenaline. It felt wrong, like something ancient watching us from the dark corners. The second floor had 3 bedrooms. The first 2 were empty, just broken furniture and spider webs. But the last room, the door was cracked open, and a dim, flickering light glowed from inside. Julia whispered, flashlight off. We edged closer. I pushed the door open with the barrel of my gun. Inside was an old baby crib, rocking slightly. The light came from a police radio sitting in the crib, one of our radios, model and all, but caked with mud and what looked like dried blood. It was on. The static hissed softly, then a distorted voice whispered through it. Unit 12, officer down. Julia looked at me. What the hell? Repeat, the voice said again. Officer down. Hart. Do you copy? That made my blood run cold. That was her name. She stepped back instinctively, eyes wide. Who's on the channel? I grabbed my shoulder mic. Dispatch. This is Unit 12. Who's transmitting on Channel 2? No response. Then, faintly through the fog of static, you shouldn't have come. The radio went dead. We left the house fast. I could feel eyes following us as we crossed the yard. Julia wanted to call it in from the cruiser, but when we got there, the dash cam light was flashing red. It had been recording on its own. The monitor showed our car sitting alone in the fog, time-stamped 2:14 a.m., the same minute the call came in. No one was inside. We both just stared. "Did we leave it running?" Julia asked. I don't think so." The radio on the dash buzzed. "Unit 12, check the barn." Same voice, deep, crackling, emotionless. We shouldn't have gone. Every nerve in my body told me not to, but procedure and morbid curiosity pulled us forward. The barn door groaned open to reveal rows of rusted tools, a tractor covered in cobwebs, and a noose still hanging from the rafters. It swung slightly, as if something unseen had just brushed past it. Then, from the darkness behind the hay bales, came a scraping sound. "Hands where I can see them!" I shouted, flashlight cutting the dark. A figure stumbled into the beam, a man in a tattered deputy uniform, face half-decayed, eyes milky white. Julia screamed. The man croaked, "You're late!" I fired. The flash blinded us for a second, but when my vision cleared, he was gone. Just a pile of rotted straw. We ran back to the car, slammed the doors, and floored it down the dirt road. The fog didn't let up until we hit the highway. When we tried to radio dispatch again, the line was clear. "Unit 12, you're breaking up. Where the hell have you been? We've been trying to reach you for an hour." I looked at the dashboard clock. 3:14 a.m. Exactly 1 hour since the first call. Back at the station, we played the dash cam footage for the chief. The video showed us driving down County 6, parking by the barn, then static, for a full hour. The next frame was us bursting back into the car and speeding off. But there was one more thing. At the 30-minute mark, the static shifted just enough to reveal a still image, the two of us standing in front of the barn. But behind us, hanging from the noose, were two figures, one wearing my badge, one wearing hers. The chief thought it was a glitch. But Julia turned pale as death and quit the next day. 2 weeks later, she was found in her home. She'd hung herself, no note. Her final radio transmission, recorded at 2:14 a.m., was a whisper, "Unit 12, officer down." Story 2, Body Cam 0457. I was a deputy in Calhoun County, Texas, for 8 years. I thought I'd seen it all. Drug raids gone sideways, domestic calls that ended in blood, and the usual small-town ugliness people pretend doesn't exist. But nothing, not even the worst crime scene, compares to what happened on June 11th, 2021. The event was later labeled Incident 0457, though the files were buried before the year ended. All that remains are fragments of body cam footage recovered from my partner, Deputy Eric Dalton. I was there that night. I wish I wasn't. At 11:47 p.m., dispatch received a 911 call from a woman near the edge of the Marston Pine Reserve, a desolate stretch of woods about 20 miles from town. The caller, identified as Caroline Dorr, reported that someone, or something, was walking around her cabin, scratching the windows. The strange part? Caroline had been reported missing 4 days earlier. Dalton and I were sent to check it out. We joked about it on the way. Probably a raccoon. Maybe she came back from a bender, the kind of banter cops use to keep their nerves in check. But as we turned off the main road, the laughter died. The forest swallowed the headlights. The radio started cutting out, and my stomach twisted with the same wrongness you feel when the world goes quiet before a storm. Caroline's cabin sat deep in the pines, barely standing. The wood looked blackened, like it had been scorched long ago. No lights, no generator hum. Dalton flipped his body cam on. Body cam 0457. Recording started 2312. We approached the front porch, flashlights out. The door was half open, creaking softly in the wind. Calhoun County Sheriff's Department, I called. Caroline, you here? No answer, just the faint sound of dripping, slow, rhythmic, steady. Inside, the cabin smelled like rot and iron. My light scanned over broken glass, overturned furniture, and dark stains that weren't quite dry. The floorboards were covered in symbols carved into the wood, circles, lines, runes I'd never seen before. Dalton muttered, "What the hell is this? Witchcraft?" Then, from the corner of the room, we heard it. A faint whisper, soft as a breath. "You came back." Dalton swung his flashlight around. Nothing. I checked my mic. "Dispatch, Unit 4. Possible suspect inside. Cabin secure perimeter. Static. Get out!" The voice didn't come from my radio. It came from behind me. I turned. Caroline was standing in the doorway to the kitchen, or what was left of her. Her skin was pale and waxy, her eyes milky, her mouth torn at the corners like she'd been trying to smile wider than humanly possible. Her clothes were soaked through, but she wasn't wet. She was dripping ash. Dalton whispered, "Ma'am, we're here to help." She tilted her head. "You shouldn't be here, Eric." He froze. His name. She said his name. "How do you know who I am?" he asked, backing up. Caroline smiled wider, that awful splitting grin. "You came here before." Then the lights flickered. Once. Twice. And the cabin went completely dark. Dalton's body cam caught everything. A faint light, his flashlight beam jerking wildly as something ran past us. Not footsteps, not animal. It moved too fast, too low to the ground, but you could hear the rasp of breath and claws against wood. I fired a warning shot. The blast echoed like thunder. When the light stabilized, Caroline was gone. We found a trapdoor half hidden beneath a rug, the hinges old but freshly disturbed. Dalton pulled it open. The stench that came out was thick enough to taste. Decay, burnt copper, wet dirt. He aimed his camera down the narrow steps. "This is Dalton. We're investigating possible homicide site. Multiple blood patterns. Descending now. The video shows us going down into the dark. My flashlight caught glimpses. Wooden crosses nailed upside down, jars of animal bones, and what looked like human teeth arranged in neat spirals. And in the center of the basement was a radio. An old police scanner still working. It hissed static, then, "Unit 4, do you copy?" My own voice, from hours earlier. Dalton looked at me, confused. "That's you." I reached for the radio. It snapped to life again. "Don't go down there." It was still me, but from another recording. Same tone, same words I'd said at dispatch briefing earlier that night. Dalton kept recording, whispering, "Jesus Christ, this is looping." The static shifted again. This time, the voice was different, ragged, wet. "He's already down here." Something moved in the shadows. The footage after that is shaky. Dalton's light flaring across walls covered in handprints, some child-sized, some larger. The radio kept spitting out overlapping voices, mine, his, Caroline's, until it all blurred into a demonic chorus. And then the shape appeared. At first it looked human, A tall man in a deputy's uniform, head lowered. But when the light caught his face, we saw it wasn't a face at all. Just a hole, a black, gaping cavity where the mouth and eyes should be, pulsing like it was breathing. Dalton screamed and fired. The thing moved with inhuman speed, slamming into him. The camera tumbled, body cam shaking, heavy breathing. "Dalton! Dalton, get up! It's in my head!" He clawed at his face like he was trying to rip something off. His eyes rolled white. And then he started laughing. That sound still lives in my nightmares. It wasn't human laughter. It was too deep, too layered, like several voices laughing inside one throat. He looked at me and said, "We all wear the same face." The figure behind him, whatever it was, started to melt into him like shadow merging with flesh. I ran. I burst out of that cabin, sprinting into the trees. My flashlight flickered, every shadow stretching too long, too alive. I didn't stop until I hit the patrol car. Dalton wasn't behind me. I grabbed the radio. "Dispatch! Officer down! I need backup now!" But the reply wasn't dispatch. "Unit 4, we already sent backup." Headlights appeared through the trees. Relief hit me until I saw the car. It was our cruiser. Same plate, same stickers, and two figures stepped out. They looked exactly like us. Same uniforms, same faces. But the smiles. God, those smiles were too wide. One of them lifted a body cam. The red light blinked. Body cam 0457. Recording overlap detected. I turned and ran again, deeper into the forest. The static in my radio grew louder, shrieking. I ripped it off and threw it, but even then I could still hear it faintly inside my head. I was found 6 hours later by a search team. They said I was wandering barefoot, muttering about the copies and the whole-faced man. Dalton's body was never found, but his body cam was recovered, half buried near the cabin steps. The footage lasted exactly 13 minutes and 7 seconds, cutting off just as he turned the camera toward the thing in the basement. At the very end, right before the recording ends, you can hear faint audio under the static. "This is Deputy Dalton, Unit 4, returning to station." Then a second voice whispering the same words. "This is Deputy Dalton, Unit 4, returning to station." Only the timestamp showed it was recorded 6 hours after he vanished. The official report blamed a gas leak hallucination and environmental confusion. The cabin was demolished. The forest burned in a controlled accident a month later. But sometimes, on quiet nights at the Calhoun station, dispatch still gets a phantom signal on Channel 4. It's always the same transmission, Unit 4, arriving at the scene. "Copy that, Dalton. Stay safe." Copy, and then static. But here's the thing. When the recording is played backward, you can hear another voice layered underneath. "We never left." Story 3. Evidence Room 313. When I transferred to the Hollow Creek Police Department in 2018, I thought it was a step up. Smaller town, slower pace, fewer violent calls. After 12 years in Houston, that sounded like heaven. Hollow Creek PD was built in the 1950s and looked it. Yellowed tiles, buzzing fluorescence, the faint smell of mildew no amount of bleach could fix. My new post was in Property and Evidence, where everything confiscated or unclaimed eventually went to die. Room 313. Everyone avoided it. It was buried in the back of the basement, past the old holding cells in a hallway that always seemed colder than the rest of the building. The door had 2 locks, 3 signs, and a flickering red exit light that hadn't worked right in decades. The first time I mentioned how creepy it felt down there, Sergeant Hayes laughed. "Every rookie says that," he told me. "The place just gives you the jitters. Nothing down there but old junk." But the junk had a history. There were unmarked boxes from the 1970s, evidence bags labeled "Do Not Reopen," and a few sealed crates stamped with FBI HOLD. Whenever I asked what was inside, Hayes changed the subject. On October 19th, we were working night rotation. It was just me, Hayes, and a rookie named Miller upstairs at the desk. I was logging evidence from a domestic case when the security monitor blinked. The feed from room 313 lit up. That wasn't supposed to happen. The camera down there hadn't worked for years. Always black screen, no signal. But suddenly, the monitor showed static that slowly cleared to reveal the room. Dimension, dusty, empty. And then, for a split second, something moved across the far end of the frame. A shadow. Tall, thin, wrong. "Miller," I said, "you see that?" He nodded. "Yeah, looked like someone's down there." Hayes shrugged. "Probably a janitor." "I'll check the roster." No janitors were scheduled. We watched the monitor again. The camera flickered once, twice, and the door to 313 swung open by itself. Aina, I volunteered to check it out. Part curiosity, part nerves, part cop instinct that doesn't know when to quit. Miller came with me, flashlight in hand, radio on full volume. The stairs to the basement groaned like old bones. The air grew colder with every step, that deep, damp chill that clings to you. The hallway light was flickering, painting the walls in a pulse of yellow and shadow. "God," Miller whispered, "why is it freezing down here?" "Old vents," I said, though I didn't believe it. When we reached room 313, the door was slightly ajar. A faint hum came from inside, like static or whispering under glass. I pushed it open. The motion sensor lights flickered to life, one by one. Rows of shelves, hundreds of sealed boxes, stacks of tagged evidence. Everything was quiet, until I noticed one crate sitting open. The tag read, Case 86-113, The White Mask Murders. Inside was a cracked porcelain mask, painted white with red streaks beneath the eyes. The file label said it was recovered in 1986 from a suspect who vanished during interrogation. Miller leaned closer. "Looks like some Halloween crap." Then the lights went out. Total darkness. The radio on my belt hissed. "Leave it where it was." I grabbed my flashlight. The beam hit the far wall, where the mask now sat on the floor, facing us. I swear to God, we hadn't moved it. We bagged the mask and brought it upstairs. Procedure. Evidence found out of place gets relogged. Hayes was furious. "You don't move legacy items without authorization," he barked. "That crate's been sealed for 30 years. "But it was open," I said. "Someone had already—" Hayes cut me off. "Nobody's touched that box since 1992. It's probably a bad latch. I'll handle it." He took the bag, locked it in the property safe, and went home an hour later. By morning, Hayes was dead. He'd hung himself in his office. The only strange thing was the white porcelain mask sitting neatly on his desk, no longer sealed in the evidence bag. After the funeral, things got worse. The station's power began flickering at random. Radios picked up strange frequencies, whispers that weren't words. Doors slammed, files vanished. Then came the recordings. The surveillance feed from room 313 started saving corrupted video files to the main server. None of them had timestamps. The first showed an empty room. Then faintly, the mask appeared on one of the shelves, even though we'd seen it destroyed and sealed again after Hayes' death. The second recording showed something else. A man in uniform, head bent backward, eyes rolled white, speaking in a deep, distorted voice. "They can't leave. None of them can leave." Miller refused to come downstairs after that. 2 weeks later, I was assigned to lockup detail. The main lights cut out around midnight, so I went to the breaker room in the basement to reset them. Halfway down the stairs, the smell hit me. Rotting meat, burnt plastic, something metallic underneath. When I turned the corner, I saw that the door to room 313 was open again. Inside, the shelves were toppled, evidence bags torn. The porcelain mask lay shattered on the ground. I should have turned back. Instead, I stepped inside. The radio crackled. "Unit 9, report." But it wasn't dispatch. It was Hayes' voice. I froze. "Sergeant?" "You opened the door," he said. "Now it knows your name." The lights flickered. My flashlight beam landed on the far wall, and every box, every bag, now had a new tag printed in red ink. Each one said, "Property of Officer David Reed. Do not remove my name." I ran upstairs. Miller was gone. His desk chair spun slowly, still warm. His radio sat on the counter, whispering static that occasionally formed half words. "Mask. Stay. Stay." When I looked at the monitor again, the feed from room 313 showed me standing inside, still pointing my flashlight around, except I was right there in front of the screen, watching. I reached out to the keyboard, trying to exit the feed. The video flickered, and the other me turned toward the camera. He smiled. Then the power went out. They found the station abandoned the next morning. The report said mass resignation, but only one body was officially recovered. Miller's, slumped against the evidence lockers, face pale and stiff. Security footage from the night before was corrupt, except for one frame. Room 313, door wide open, and a tall figure wearing a white mask standing just inside. The rest of the video was static, but when audio experts enhanced the sound, they found faint whispering underneath. 86-113, room 313. That was the old case number. The White Mask murders had never been solved. The suspect never found. But the file said one final note scribbled in handwriting, not listed anywhere in the chain of custody. The mask is not the killer. The mask wears the killer. Hollow Creek PD was shut down 3 months later, officially condemned due to structural instability. I transferred again to a bigger department this time. I never talk about what happened, but sometimes during night shift, the evidence room lights flicker for no reason. Sometimes the radio catches a whisper between channels. And twice now, I've found a single porcelain shard sitting in my locker, each time streaked with dried red beneath the eyes. The tag always reads the same. Case 86-113, return to room 313.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe.